like to think that people have changed. I like to think that I know that I've changed. I like to think that others have changed, but
well,
how
have you? How have you changed?
How have we changed?
Okay, so you grew up Nazarene. John, did you in Scotland grow up Nazarene?
Yeah, my dad was a Nazarene pastor.
Yes, I knew this because I visited your father's church.
Oh yeah,
you
in
did?
Scotland?
When I was on tour with the chamber singers.
Oh right.
So I believe in 2000, 2001, something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Nazarene though.
Yes.
I would imagine it's a different thing though culturally than it was what you experienced here, was it?
Like between Scotland and the US?
Yeah.
Oof. I don't know. No, I don't think that different. Not in the church. I mean, culturally, there's lots of differences.
Yeah, but not so much the church.
No, I think the Nazarene Church in Britain is pretty American. Actually, it always felt a little bit not Scottish.
Really?
That was just the U.S. influence of.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think the Nazarene Church, it talks about being global, but it's really U.S.
Oh wow!
And then branched out.
So the two of you, both born and raised Nazarene, right? And your family like lived on campus.
I grew up on campus for sure.
At Eastern Nazarene.
Yeah.
So what for you, like you bought in all the way through, right?
I didn't even have to. It was just, that was my blood. That was in my blood, was the Nazarene Church. I didn't know that there was another way of living.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a townie at school. Right. But I was a Nazi. I was the only Nazi in my grade, like in high school.
Okay.
So it was like I had Megan and Jenny from Wally that were like a year ahead of me, which there was a part of me that was like, oh, I want to try and fit in. But like Wally and Bethel, I went to Bethel, were like the rival churches. But Bethel had almost nobody at it. And I was for sure the only one at my school who went to Bethel. Everyone else went to Wally. So I was very, very much on my own. I was the only one in my grade.
Okay.
Who was the Nazi. Yeah. So it was like, I couldn't fit in at Wally with the Nazi kids and I couldn't fit in with the non-Nazi kids because I was it was just a big old loose situation.
And Bethel had Bethel's a lot more earthy. It's a lot more like raw. It is now, at least. It's like the people that are there, just a very different vibe than like the college campus church.
Yeah. I think that was true. And I don't think I necessarily saw that at the time, but I think that's probably true.
But while you're at ENC, I mean, John, you were like the chapel king. You were on you were in the gospel choir. You were the guy that introduced the entire world to using a shaker with a djembe.
Right? Yeah, I know.
People who do that now are like, oh my God,
Jon Austin.
John technique. I know. It's weird.
But you both, I mean, Ange, did you do summer ministry stuff?
I did only 1 year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did chapel worship team maybe 2 years. Yeah. And Summerman 1 team.
Well, that's where we got together.
Yeah. We got together.
Senior year?
We got together
your junior
year. Like halfway through my junior year, I broke up with one person.
Yes.
And John was like on it. He was on
it.
That.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for like 3 years.
I know.
She's always dating someone.
Honestly, I knew this. I did know that you had a thing for Ange.
Yes, freshman year.
Yeah. So the two, you're all in, and then after college, I did go to your wedding, and I know your anniversary because it was 2 weeks before my wedding.
What's our anniversary, Dave?
August 16th.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, you know it better than John does.
I also know that the cheesecake at your wedding melted because it was in the basement of Wally. Like I didn't remember
that it was cheesecake, but it did melt. Whatever it was.
Wasn't it cheesecake? I know because I love cheesecake, and I was really disappointed.
It probably was a cheesecake. Oh, thank you for that.
You're very welcome. See,
I feel
some things
my
are sharp.
Life, yeah, you've got that. My whole life is a blur. My whole life is blocked out of my memory for some reason. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but the time we started to connect, at least Ange, you and I, was when you were like getting into blogging. You guys went to Chad, right? With the Mennonite organization.
Yep.
Mennonite Committee.
Yeah. So you guys kind of like, you weren't missionaries per se, were you? Like, what was that like? What was it about?
Go for it.
I want to hear you talk about it.
So yeah, not missionaries. So Mennonite Central Committee is like the humanitarian aid arm of the Mennonite Church.
Okay.
Which never were. We were never Mennonite.
We were never Mennonite. So I got a degree in international development, and then we were looking for humanitarian aid positions. We were Christian at the time, so applied for like secular and Christian, and got a good opportunity with Mennonite Central Committee. So it wasn't evangelical at all.
No,
it
right.
was to be country program directors for their work in Chad.
Well, I think the motto of MCC was something like peace, relief, and development in the name of Christ.
Right.
Okay.
And so we could buy into that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Of course, yeah.
But also, like, it was interesting because MCC, Mennonite Central Committee, they hire, for lack of a better word, people as couples. So it was like they hired us based on Jon's resume, but I also had to have a resume, and they hired both of us. Like, we were both the country representatives and we split the position, but I kid you not, like, I had stay-at-home mother on my resume and listed all the things in the neighborhood that I did that were like, I don't even know, like reaching out, like peace building and kinds of things.
Wow.
That's a little humiliating. I know. That was
It is, but so, like, is that because of the organization? Like, they're Mennonites, and so like women have a particular role, or was it just?
No, that is a good question, and I don't think that it would be fair for us to answer that. I don't think it would be fair for me to answer that because we're not ingrained, we're not well versed enough in that denomination or whatever church to answer that question. But just based on experience, they really were family centered, family organized, which we really enjoyed. Actually, we loved that. Like, lots of organizations that we worked near would send the man to the annual meetings or whatever. And that was never our situation. Like, MCC always sent us as a couple and saw us as equals for sure, and then paid the way for our children to come too. So every meeting, every 6 months, we had like retreats, and we had area regional gatherings, and it was all 6 of us. They paid for all 6 of us to go. So we got to see the side of organizations that have overhead costs, where everybody's looking for organizations to give to that are 100% of your money goes to the needy or whatever. And it's like, well, we actually got to experience what it looks like on the other side. Like, here are the overhead costs, and here's why. Like, we want to sometimes buy Doritos, so like MCC gave us a little fund of money that was like, you can do with this whatever you feel like is the right thing to do. And we're like, we're buying Doritos, like, this month you need a little bag of Doritos, and that's going to be okay.
It seems reasonable to me.
It is. Yeah. I think it gave us a really unique opportunity to see, I don't know what that world looks like.
I bet.
I guess.
But like being over there, I imagine there are lots and lots of experiences with lots and lots of different stories. But one of the things that's really captivated our conversations is how much experiencing the world outside of the bubbles that we were brought up in made us pop those bubbles.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm most intrigued by.
Yeah.
And I wonder, when Angie, I think when you and I were talking, when we were messaging, not talking because this is like the most we've talked, but we've messaged
literally ever. Yep.
When we were messaging, it was a lot about like, atheism, agnosticism, like what's going on and why. And was it when you were over there that you started to have some of those bigger questions about the faith in general, or when did that sort of come about?
That's a good question.
So
I mean, the two of you probably have different answers, I would imagine. But
we do
slightly, although thankfully for our marriage, we went stuff fairly similar. At fairly similar times.
Yeah.
And we've always been really communicative with each other about this and everything. So
beautiful.
So I guess I'll just talk from my own perspective about that, which is like, I have a very distinct memory of when this all began for me, which I believe was 2008. And it was a group of us ladies from ENC, who shall remain nameless, who we went to Washington, D.C. together to like have a girls' weekend. And one of the things that we did was we went to the Holocaust Museum. And after the Holocaust Museum, we were on, I believe it was a train. We were on the train ride back. And one of them said something like, it's just so sad that after all the suffering that the Jews went through, that they went to hell afterwards. And I was exactly kind of like what you're doing right now with your facial expression. That was what my soul felt.
Wow.
But I did not have words. So I was like totally speechless. I was like, is that what we believe? Is that what I believe? Like, do I actually think that? Because I don't. Like in my core, I knew I absolutely don't believe that. I completely disagree with that just in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
But I didn't have words for that. I didn't know that I didn't know that I believed that, first of all. I didn't know that, like, quote unquote, we believe that.
Right.
And
like
then,
it was a
like,
given. It was just
like
a given.
it was just this given. Like, we as a group walk around and this is what we believe. So like we as a group went through this whole museum and we came out on the other side and this is what we believe. I was like, no. Like in my heart of hearts, I'm like, absolutely, I don't believe that. So that for me kickstarted this whole questioning process of like, do I believe any of this?
Wow.
And so it was that question first. And immediately I was like, no, I absolutely don't believe that. Then for me, it went into a friend, which it's probably a mutual friend for all of us from ENC. And then earlier days, who is gay and was part of what I knew the Gay Christian Network. So GCN, right?
Yeah.
And had, kind of in a public forum, kind of talked about his experience in that. And so I just started researching and I was like, what do we believe? What do we believe as Nazarenes, as Christians? And it's just so interesting, like now, especially looking back on that, like, how did I even have a we? How did I even, I don't know. I guess I make sense of it in terms of just, I was such a baby. Like we were all such babies. We were spoon fed all of our belief systems.
100%.
And then I think most of us have gone through that process of sort of figuring out, do I actually believe this? Unlearning a lot of what we believed and then kind of paving our own way. I think we've all done that.
Yeah.
So I went through that, like probably most or all of us did, or some of us, whatever.
Yep.
And just really, really, really disengaged in a lot of ways, like cut a lot of those cords, like, nope. But then jumping into Chad, the Chad experience, which was in 2012, that started for us, of still being a Christian, still being Jesus followers, still believing the bulk of that.
Yeah.
And I guess just being, we were face to face with those questions all of a sudden, like literally, like we're in a Muslim country. So now I'm looking Muslims in the face, which we were taught to believe certain things about Muslims.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
Not only as Christians, but also as Americans. And I will never, ever forget our first day in Chad. And we talk about this sometimes, it will come up, because it was also like, there's some humor in that day too. Because we arrived in Chad at the airport. I'll just tell you this. And as Americans, we think, okay, so these people have their heads wrapped in their turbans. They have dark sunglasses on. They have AK-47s strapped to their backs. And they're wearing just full Muslim, everything you think a terrorist looks like. This is what we're looking at right now. Like we get out of the airplane. This is what we're looking at. And I remember thinking, oh my God, we're all going to die today. Like today is our day. We're all dead. We're dead. Wow. And then we get outside of the airport. We go through the whole process of non-English speaking airport and get out of the whole process. We are standing outside and two things happen. One is not funny. So we're laughing prematurely. This is not funny at all. A Muslim man. Oh my God, I have to laugh because otherwise I'm going to cry. So
this part's not funny. You should tell the funny part first, at least.
Well, because we're laughing, I know. All right, maybe I'll just skip that first part. The second part is that trash starts falling from the sky.
What?
I'm kidding you not.
It's
Like
the apocalypse.
it's the apocalypse. Like literal trash is falling from the sky.
That's crazy.
And we were like, oh my God, like trash is this trash falling from the sky? What is happening right now?
Like we had to find something to hide under.
So we found
that
a
much
tree.
trash.
That much trash. Like actual.
That much trash.
Not just a little bit of trash is falling from this. There's no buildings above us. There's no skies. Like it is just trash falling from the sky. I don't know how we interpret this, but right now we're in a certain zone of interpreting everything in the world.
Yeah.
And trash is falling from the sky. So
You're
like,
thinking.
I don't even know what we're thinking. We're just thinking we're gonna die. This is hell. What are we doing here?
Oh,
everything about life. So
it wasn't Jesus is coming back. Where's the trumpet? It was.
Yeah, no.
Not good.
It was not good. It was
Okay.
not good. So we get our whole family like hiding under a tiny little tree, which trees hardly even exist in Chad, but we're hiding under this tree, just like, what the hell is going on right now? This is what the hell is going on right now? And that it really did kickstart the.
And by the way, so we actually don't know.
We don't know.
But
you never found out what was going on.
All we can guess is that maybe planes flying over just let out their
like way
trash.
high. Mm-hmm.
Like like really high, just like
Whoa.
dump their, everything.
Wow.
I don't know.
I don't know.
There's no other explanation. I mean,
it was actual trash falling from the sky. Like, there's literally zero explanation.
I actually love that there's no explanation. That makes
There's no explanation.
It makes it so much better.
Yeah, it was either God in the heavens above or I don't know, airplanes or whatever. I don't know what it was. But it really did kickstart for us, just like, I don't even know. Maybe that should have been like a warning.
Yeah, just stay away. We get those warnings and it's like.
Yeah. But you know what? Chad was not like that. So, and I think that's probably what made that experience so remarkable and so earth shattering for us, was that, I mean, it's funny. Like I remember our language. I remember my language being like, people, where I'm seeing Jesus right now. I'm seeing Jesus in my Muslim neighbors. I'm seeing Jesus in the welcoming of our Muslim neighbor. Like it was all about the Muslims for me. It was all like everything I've ever been taught is false.
Oh, that's so good. That's
the church, like the American media, everything I've ever learned about everyone I'm looking in the face at is false. And I don't know how to make sense of that. So what we did was like, we were there for peace building. Like that was the bulk of our work. We did other stuff too. But a lot of it was bridge building. And we really, really believe in that even still, like bridge building. So bringing together people who are different, who look different than me, who sound different than me, who believe different than me. Yeah. And just being humans together. So we kind of inherited like a dying program. And it was very distinctly like the north side of the city was the Christian side of the city, and opposite direction. South side of the city was Christian side of the city. The north side of the city was the Muslim
country.
Actually, yeah, you're right. So we lived in N'Djamena, which is the capital city. So the north went up to the desert and the south went down to like where it was more green and lush. And it was north was up. It was the Arab influence from northern Africa and, the Middle East, and Southern Africa was kind of below that. And we were just at that threshold. And so we moved from the southern side of the city where it was, it wasn't lush, but it was the Christian side. And we made a conscious decision, like we as a Christian organization, we're going to move to the north of the city and live in a Muslim neighborhood. And we were fought tooth and nail, like, don't do that. All the Muslims they have knives in their outfits and they're going to kill you at the first, everything. Like it was just fear based. And we're like, we're going to do this. Like we want to do this. We've experienced nothing but warm and welcoming gestures, whatever. So we did that. Like, wow. We were not supported. We were supported by our organization, but we were not supported locally by our local partner organizations or our staff members. They were afraid. But
wow, that's really interesting because, one, I really love that you pointed out, and I haven't actually thought about this in a while, how we talk about people that we are serving or whatever. It's like the least, the last, the lost, all that sort of stuff. And we're just loving them for Jesus. That's a really interesting thing to bring up. But then also to like do the like peace work requires being in relationship and in close proximity.
Yeah.
People you want to make peace with.
Yeah.
And you were able, as someone who didn't experience the conflict that is inherent to living in that way, where your religion is against this religion, you were able to come and be like, well, I'm gonna live here. Yeah. So meeting that resistance, did you feel like because you moved there, the Christians like didn't associate with you the same way?
They probably did, but I can't speak to their motives necessarily, because
Sure.
I mean, we were in a really interesting situation. So we were in a country like almost all of Africa that had been colonized.
Right.
And so I think MCC did and continues to do, as far as we know, an excellent job of not feeding into that system. So what we love and appreciate about MCC is how MCC as an organization partners with local organizations who are already doing the work. And we're just there to be like, how can we help you do what you're already doing?
Yeah.
And we kind of act as liaisons between what these local organizations are doing and the people from mostly North America. So like the US and Canada.
Yeah.
Who are funding, like who are giving funds towards this work around the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, we sort of had to kind of appease the local partners and the faraway contributors to this work. But at the same time, we were like, well, we're kind of in charge here in this country. And we need to move because we were like literally dying. Like Jon actually got really sick, and he
right.
that if you want to.
That's right.
Yeah. But let's like put that on the shelf for a second. Because that's its own interesting
it is
side note. But yeah, so we made a decision like, despite the advice maybe of the locals. So we were generally partnered with local Christian organizations, and we just felt like it was helpful for, I don't know, was it selfish, Jon? Was it selfish, or did we feel like this is for the good of the cause kind of a thing?
That we partner with Muslims?
No, that we moved to the north side of the city.
Yeah, a bit of both.
Like, I think one way or another, everything we do is, oh man, this is something my friend who I had on the podcast, Rabbi Randy Kafka, and I always talk about that selfish is just such an unhelpful word. It's self-motivated, and everything is.
Yeah.
Like it comes out of your values, out of what matters to you. So the decisions, every decision we make, it doesn't like no matter how much we want to think something's altruistic, it's like, well, what matters to me is making peace, like being in relationship with people, whatever it is,
right. And it is self-fulfilling. Like, this feels good to me to be able to do, to the point where I was willing to die for that. I was willing to be a martyr for that. And for sure in the back of my head, I thought, oh, I'm going to be one of those people that does die for it. Like, I can picture myself now. I can picture myself with the people coming to the door with their knives and their guns and, burning our house down, whatever. I'm going to die. That didn't happen.
Yeah. But I think that's where you and I, Ange, really started to bond on the internet. That like, we both had that, like, if we're going to do this thing, then like, fuck it, we're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's all or nothing. The way Jesus talks, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
It has to be. So I'm willing to die for it. And so it makes sense to me. Like, when you started to engage, like I blogged, you would blog, like you had like that spirit of discipleship or trying to follow after this way. We bonded over that, and it makes sense to, like, you're in this, like, you're in the thick of it. You're trying to do this work that, many people are just like, yeah, I'm a Christian and whatever. You're like, no, I'm a Christian. I'm going to Muslim country and I'm going to live next to them. And that makes sense. I think a lot of people would find that admirable that you were doing that, but wouldn't want to do that themselves, probably.
Yeah. And that's some interesting feedback that I think we probably got a decent amount of the time, was like this glamorized version of what we were doing. And there was nothing glamorous about it at all.
Sure.
Like, we literally kind of, oh, funny, because you just joked about literally in one of your recent podcasts, but we did literally lose our minds. Like, we were not well. Like, we left there very unwell. after all of it, for so
Wow.
many reasons. But what happened in the process of that was a lot of finally seeing the light of humanity. And part of seeing the light of humanity was being immersed in the other, being immersed in people who look different, who believe different, who think and feel different and speak different language. Like everything about everyone around us was different. And it was the most incredible thing I've ever experienced in my life, was being able to, like, what an incredible experience it was to be a white American, but to be immersed in a place that was so, we were the other person. Like we were the minority. We were judged. We were racially profiled driving down the street. Like, I don't pretend to know what it's like to be a Black person driving down the street in the US today, but I have an inkling of what that experience is like from a different context.
Absolutely.
Which is its own, that's its own story unfolding as well.
Well, and especially coming from a group of people that were colonized by people that look like you. And so you go to a place and what people see is that, right? You are the colonizer, and you're coming there not to colonize, and it's hard for someone to maybe make that switch. Like, why are you here if you're not here to take my stuff or to take over my place? You know? And so there is, rightfully so, some profiling, and you experience that. That's a very real thing.
Yeah, it was very real. And it makes a lot of sense when you kind of break it down like that, to say, you know what, bring it on. I guess I'm willing to pay the price for all the colonization that's ever been done to you. I'm so sorry.
Oh, brutal.
But it was brutal. It was brutal because those were never our intentions. That was never our motive. But we got pulled over and we got harassed and we got brought to the police station and we got held for hours and hours and hours and hours. For money or for, I get it because now the tables have turned, and now they have an advantage over the white people to say, no, now it's your turn to give back to me. I mean, it's extremely complicated.
It is,
and I won't try and boil it down to something simple because it's not.
No, that's so good. Yeah, it's true. But that has such a profound impact that you said, you guys came out of there not well. You lost your minds. I mean, I know Jon got very sick, but you got beat up over there in so many ways that you couldn't come back the same.
No,
there's just no way.
We didn't, and we sort of tried to come back. And at the end of our 5 years, so we had a 5-year contract. Yes. And then we, somewhere along the way, we're like, yeah, we can take an extra year. We'll do a 6-year contract. Sure. Because then I think we got extra vacation time or something like that if we did a 6th year. And so we got that extra time, but partway through that time, we were like, we are not fucking okay. We're not okay at all. We are not okay. And it was our bosses who were like, you're really not okay. So
wow, they noticed it.
They did. They were the ones who noticed. And really, the only other person I think who noticed was John Paul Perez. And
really?
Yeah. So John Paul and John had connected. You guys got together, right? Yep. And they got to the core of it in conversation. And John Paul was like, you really need to not go back there. That place is your trauma. And you're choosing to go back there. You really need to not go back there. And we're like, we're fine. We're fine, So other people could see it and we didn't see it yet.
Of course.
But eventually when our bosses pointed it out, they were like, you need to take an extra month off while you're in the US. And we just lost it. We cried, we sobbed. We had the worst summer of our lives. That was 2016. And we were and that's when we made this decision. We cannot do 2 more years. We have to do just the one and be done. We've got to.
But you still had to do one after that.
Yeah. We went back and did our last year of the 5. But I think knowing that there was an end in sight, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, was helpful for us. But it's weird, because when you're serving for Jesus, you're supposed to sacrifice all of it. And so it was we see all these other missionaries there who, some of them they've signed up for life and they're still doing it. And it's hard not to compare myself to them and say, what do they have that I don't have?
I know what they have that you don't have.
Which is?
Because I've been in enough of these circumstances what they have that you don't have, or I'll say what you have that they might not have.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably more like that. Is an empathy that's willing to understand the suffering of somebody else in a way that changes you.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, it's the colonizer mindset, which is, I know you need. I have you need. You didn't go with that. You went with, what do I have something. I know I have something to offer. I'm not entirely sure what it is.
Yeah.
But so that's the difference. Any missionary I've ever met, any social worker, that or goodwill church person that comes to work with people experiencing homelessness, it's, I have you need.
Mm-hmm.
And when that's your mindset, you're always going to leave well. If your mindset is like hands wide open, you're probably going to get fucked up. And that's what happened to you guys.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah. I don't think we realized we had those hands wide open though. Like, I think it took us time to realize that was what we were also experiencing. So it did become a give and take. Like, we were no longer.
That was genius.
That was genius. This is why I listen to Dave's podcast. Go ahead, John. You've come to the.
I'm still listening.
Welcome.
But I just wanted
welcome,
to say
John. I love you.
that was excellent.
Yeah. Then John, when you're living in this scenario where you've moved to this, the northern part of the city, you've experienced all the same things, your kids are involved in it, you're getting sick along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the thing that sort of goes off in my mind is, once you've experienced all this stuff in a place that's foreign to you, what does it look like for the two of you, for you to come back home and figure out life in a way that just it feels brand new, right? It's got to feel like completely foreign to come back here. Like,
yeah.
What is that? What was that like?
So actually, before I get to there, that journey started while we were still in Chad, because we were in communication, like on Facebook. So we saw the world here, our old home, continuing, people we knew, what their life was like, and then we were experiencing what we were in Chad, which was just like a completely different world. So and that for us, or for me, was a big part of this journey away from Christianity.
Yeah.
It was a big struggle to view U.S. Christianity from a different place. So there's like there's a few situations that are really prominent for us, and one, and you can obviously chime in, but one was the same, we woke up in the morning and got on Facebook, and there were some friends of ours who had or like friends from college who had just gotten a new house, like this big mansion.
Yes.
Their thing was like, praise God, finally prayers answered. Okay, so they got this house, and then the woman who worked in our house came into work that day, and her son had just died. And she had been praying for like weeks or whatever, all through the night. The whole church had been praying. And we had multiple situations like that where you just can't justify the two. Like, nope. So when you pray in the US, you get good things, and when you pray in Chad, you get fucked.
Yes.
So, like, how can you possibly think that that's the same God, or that that's the same, or some kind of an equal system where we're all praying to the same thing, and then God's just like, okay, you get blessed, you get blessed, fucked, fucked. And it's almost always like wealth blessed, and poor gets fucked. And that's just,
oh, John,
see, that was God, then that's not what I want.
That's genius too, my friend, because and I feel like it's necessary for people to hear, because it's like, oh, thank God I got that parking space. Like,
Right.
it's like, what? How is that? Like, that's the way that we've been formed, is to attribute like these financial or ease blessings to some divine being that's like, I think John needs that front row spot at Whole Foods. I think he needs it. I'm giving it to him. Hey, can you come out at this time? You know, it's like, so yeah, what you're saying is true. If that's that summary of the way that we view it, when you actually point out this is actually what you believe, if you draw the logical conclusion, it's like your blessing is a house, is a mansion. That person who's suffering and their child is suffering and there's no hope for anything remotely like that, and they might not get food tomorrow or something like that, like they believe in that same God that you got a mansion from.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
It's nonsensical. It's really nonsensical. And I think it was those kind of examples. And there are so many of them. Like, we just have such a collection of experiences like that.
Yes.
Where we're like we're weighing one against the other. And we're like, this does not make sense. None of this makes sense. And all of a sudden we started to experience religion and God as a cultural experience as opposed to a truth. And if I were born in the north of Chad, I would be Muslim and believe X, Y, and Z. If I were born in the south of Chad, I would be Christian because of the colonizers and believe X, Y, Z. But I was born in the US to a Christian family in a Christian nation, quote unquote, bullshit.
Right.
And I believe X, Y, Z. And just that is our lens of the world. And it's not until I put myself intentionally in a position that expands that worldview that I can be like, hold on a minute, like, this no longer makes sense.
Absolutely.
Leads into another really interesting part, which was the relationships that we made with the Muslims there.
Yeah.
On one man specifically who was going through the same thing that we were,
deconstruction,
coming out of Islam as we were coming out of Christianity.
Whoa, I love that.
To hear him talk about just basically the exact same things, like he had believed the same things that we did, that if you pray hard enough that you get blessings, and he was just seeing like this actually, it just doesn't make sense. And so we would have those conversations cross religion. And it was fascinating.
It was fascinating because he was our safe space and we were his safe space. Like, he literally could not speak about it openly in his context because it was not allowed. It was shameful, and he would be like basically banned from everything. And you just don't do that there. You cannot do that there. And we had the opportunity, like I mean, it's uncomfortable or whatever, but we have the opportunity to kind of tear it all apart, you know, in our context, which is wonderful. That's a wonderful thing about, I guess, I don't know, freedom of religion or whatever. But like, we also were in a context where we basically hung out with missionaries, because the people, the expatriates who were there who were not missionaries were like single young party people who were there for embassy work or whatever, or military work. And that was just not really our circle either. So we didn't really fit in anywhere, but mostly we ended up fitting in like in the missionary circles. And we could have some conversation, but if we went down that road with our missionary friends, we were like basically telling them, we think that what you're doing is, I don't even want to fill in the blanks right now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to suggest, but I kind of do, that what they're doing is, God, how do I even fill in that sentence? I've like stopped myself from finishing that sentence for so long.
Wow.
I don't even know how to finish it.
No?
I don't believe.
Or are you afraid of what, like, do you feel like because you know them, like you don't think that they would intentionally do something?
Yes.
To, you know.
Well, I think what we felt is that the evangelical side of the mission work there was very much just like colonization. Like,
absolutely.
This is something that we have.
I don't think they thought that.
No.
I don't think they think that.
No, not at all. I'm just saying that was how it came across to us.
Absolutely. And any of us that, like, as white evangelicals who've been brought up in that world, we know and love white evangelicals who have participated in colonization. You know, when I went to Haiti, I remember going to a missionary outpost, and I met some missionaries that have been there for 30 plus years. And guess what? Shocker, they couldn't speak Haitian Creole.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you live in a country for 30 years and you still need translators? It's because you're a colonizer. And that doesn't mean, whatever, it doesn't mean you're damned. Doesn't mean you're this horrific human being. It means you got a major blind spot, that it would really benefit you to listen to some people that don't think the way you do. But ultimately, that's what we often find ourselves in. The three of us have come to a place where we were raised a certain way. We saw all the holes, and we had conversations, and it felt like, well, it doesn't feel like there's any room for this kind of thought here.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas in other traditions, within Judaism, I find that, like, my friend who's a rabbi, who I've mentioned before, basically thinks the same way the three of us do, and can remain within their tradition and be a rabbi. And you can have someone that's super orthodox and sounds like a lot of the things we've described before. I love that there's that room for a table to be like, we're still family. We think very differently, but we're family. I don't think that really exists as much within our tradition.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah. And that's an interesting space, being part of a missionary community. Is like we're all part of like different denominations or whatever. So there's room for differences, but at the end of the day, our goal is all the same. Right. Except ours wasn't. So that's where we were like, we don't fit in here, because our goal is not to create more Christians. Like, our goal is not to say, I'm going to do this, but really my ultimate goal is that you need to believe what I believe. Like, that was never our goal. That was never MCC's goal.
Okay, so quick story.
Okay.
One of the funniest things, not funny, it's actually super sad. Do you remember the magazine?
I was just going to talk about this. Yes,
I
do. No, please go ahead.
Okay. So
it's not funny at all. It's terrible.
There's one organization.
I love that this is the second time you've started a story that's sad. That's good.
It's terrible, and we're laughing.
A missionary organization who do humanitarian type work, but also the evangelical side, planting churches. And they put out like a magazine each month for
each quarter or whatever,
for their supporters and other missionaries. It's pretty common. And this one article was talking about digging wells.
Yes.
Which is amazing, and it's amazing work they do.
Yes.
But
so needed. So neat. Like, people need water, right? People need literal water to live.
Yeah.
The quote from the missionary was, actually, do you know it exactly? Because you can just say it, because I'll probably screw it up.
I don't know it exactly.
Okay, so it's along the lines of, my goal is to be the most inefficient well digger ever. So the idea was, I want to be terrible at my job so that I can stay in this village for a long time.
Stop it.
And witness to people, if, I could dig this well in 3 days.
And be out of here and be gone.
But that's not the point. Let's drag this out. Right? Your eyes say it all. I know. And that's not a joke. That's like, that was in this magazine. So
I'm blown
away.
So
the goals are just twisted. It's like the primary goal is to evangelize.
My God.
And then these other ways are just like shoe-ins to communities.
Right.
Oh, I can't even.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we couldn't even either. That was a tough pill to swallow. And that was really difficult. That was when I think we probably started being offended, when people started confusing us with missionaries. They were like, you're missionaries, right? We were like, hell no, we are not missionaries. Because if this is what missionaries are doing and sounding like, we are not part of that.
No.
And just a big fat no. Like, no.
No, because missionaries did take on the role of colonization. Like, it switched. There was a switch when colonization equaled bad and evil. It was like, well, we got to still take over somehow. So let's do it with our ideas rather than taking over land, like, and plundering. But yeah, so to be associated with that, good move. And you weren't missionaries in that sense, in the way that we grew up thinking about it, for sure. You were on a mission for sure, but that was not it was not to like spread the gospel in a way that influenced an entire nation to be like, we now believe in Jesus and we're going to heaven.
Yeah, no, none of that ever.
No.
Never. We never signed up for any of that. We saw it really up close and personal. And the more we saw of it, and please don't get me wrong, like there are amazingly wonderful, kind-hearted, well-intentioned people, beautifully intentioned people who speak lots of languages of Chad in Chad, who are doing very, very good work. But there's just this part, like, I can't do that. I can't be all in with you on that because I just think that part is wrong. Like, I think we can help wherever those people feel like they might need help and support without saying, and while we're here, you also need to believe what I believe and become more like me. Like,
absolutely.
Why do those things need to go hand in hand? And that was never of interest to us. So yeah, I mean, like, long story short, we came back to the US, very, very different people. And we came back and we moved back to a place in the US. Like, we needed something. We were totally burned out. We were totally like, not mentally healthy at all. Like individually, probably also as a couple.
I mean, I was okay.
That's cute. Rough. That's really cute. Sweet.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. So what we needed was like, we needed mundane. And what is more mundane than like small town Ohio, right?
Yes.
So back to Ohio. We didn't want to go super small town because that was, I mean, it was, I don't know a better way to say it. It's too white. Like, small town Ohio is extremely white. So we were like, well, we want to live in a place that's slightly more diverse. Our kids are used to a lot of diversity. In fact, they're used to being the minority. So we need a little bit of diversity. So there is a little bit of diversity here where we live, and it's been a good thing.
Yeah, good.
But like, coming back to the place that we had moved away from originally was really challenging. So we like, we got together and had coffee or whatever, or lunch, or had people over with people that we had previously been friends with, and were almost immediately like uncomfortable, and some totally rejected us, like one and done, kind of like, yep, you're not who I thought you were going to be.
Whoa.
I don't think it was malicious. I just think people expected the old Jon and Ange to come back, and we were not the old Jon and Ange.
People was asked us, how was Chad? And what they wanted to hear was a short summary. Like, it was good. We accomplished this. We struggled here. It was hot.
We saw some animals.
We saw animals. The kids were fine. And now we're home. And that was just really good enough for most people. I haven't talked about this not with really anyone, maybe a couple of people, but again, it's pretty shallow. It's not, I have one friend who I get into it with, but in general, most people don't care about our experience. And so when we came back, my experience was, if we said things that people expected to hear or wanted to hear, then we would remain in that circle, in that group. If we said something that deviated from their expectations, then we were just basically outcast. I mean, not necessarily in a super like aggressive way.
They didn't know what to do with us.
We just didn't fit, right?
They didn't know what to do with us.
Yeah. So you just like share what's real, and that's too much for that's not what we wanted. And maybe they don't know that. They don't know that what they want is just like, I didn't really want to go there.
Well, I think realistically, we probably knew people better than they knew themselves. So we would decide what to share. So, somebody would ask us something and we would judge, what do you actually want to hear? This is what I'll give you. Very few people wanted to hear the actual, I mean, our experience was traumatic, like, and it spreads far beyond our experience into everybody's life. Like, who actually wants to hear about all your trauma? Not many people.
No. Most people.
So this is not Chad specific. This is like anyone's trauma. This is your trauma. This is my trauma. This is your like, people don't know how to live in other people's trauma alongside them.
Yes.
In a real and authentic way. It scares people, and it's understandable, but it's really sad.
Man, this is affecting me in a pretty deep way now that you're talking about it that way. Like, I remember when I was working running this lunch program. This is when we connected, Ange. I was running this lunch program in Quincy for people who experienced homelessness. And I would go back to a weekly Bible study and I couldn't, like, I couldn't have a conversation about, and the Lord said in Romans 3:12 that I couldn't do it. And so I would be like, at the end, I would inevitably blow it up with my shit and be like, well, does anyone care that like 3 miles from here, someone's sleeping behind CVS without it? Like, I couldn't just do it. And so like, I didn't have the wisdom that I think you just mentioned, John, which is like, some people we would prejudge. We would just like not share it. I couldn't keep it in, but it like eventually realized, oh, people don't want to hear this. They just stop talking. I'd share, they'd stop talking, and it'd be like, well, Dave just deflated the room.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't want to be, who wants to be,
yeah,
who wants to be that person?
Yeah.
Right. So like, you just learn to just, I'm not going to talk about this.
Yeah.
But it's a weird system. It made me just think of the military too, like, or anything that people give money towards because they don't want to do it. So like, you know, people supported us to be there because they wanted the results that we were going to provide. They don't actually want to hear about all the dirty, like, and it's the same like with military, like, like, hoorah, let's support them, but we don't actually want to hear what you're experiencing over there. Just get the job done and come back and we'll have hot dogs.
Right. Thank you for your service.